I thank the Speaker. I rise today in opposition to the plan that's been put forward by the President. As you, Mr. Speaker, just noted a few moments ago, it is a small portion of a larger and what I believe to be fundamentally flawed plan. And I say that for many different reasons, one of which is this simple reality that body bags from a far-off battle or from a far-off war don't return to Washington, D.C. They return to congressional districts and states across this country, and it is for that very reason that the Founding Fathers believed so strongly in Congress having the authority and the sole authority for the declaration of war. I mean, I think it's important to look at what James Wilson, who happened to be one of the biggest advocates for a strong presidency, what he said to his own state delegation back in 1787. He said, on the importance of congressional authority with regard to war, this system will not hurry us into war. It is calculated to guard against it. It will not be in the power of a single man or a single body of men to involve us in such distress. For the important power of declaring war is vested at the legislative level at large. George Washington said this, "The Constitution vests the power of declaring war in Congress. Therefore, no offensive expedition of importance can be undertaken until after they shall have deliberated upon the subject and authorized such a measure." James Madison said this, "The power to declare war, including the power of judging the causes of war, is fully and exclusively vested in the legislature. The executive has no right in any case to decide the question whether there is or is not cause for declaring war." I think our Founding Fathers had it right. And if we move forward today without stopping and waiting and insisting upon the President's constitutional duty to come before this body and ask for declaration of war, I think we're making a mistake. I would say, secondly, that I think we're making a mistake because the news of today is that General Dempsey now says if the plan doesn't work out, he would in fact recommend American ground troops there in this crisis in the Middle East. I think that that's telling, because if you stop and think about it, is America the only group that's expected to suffer through the ravages of war with regard to boots on the ground in this instant if General Dempsey's call was right? Think about this. There have been 6,600 American deaths there in this part of the world in recent history. There have been more than 50,000 soldiers that have returned with life-altering wounds. Their lives are changed forever. And yet we can't get a real firm commitment out of allies there in the Middle East as to what they will or won't do with regard to ground troops. So if it is that big a threat, why is it that allies in that part of the world are not making real and substantial commitments with regard to what they will or won't do with regard to ground troops? Thirdly, I'd say what we're doing is we're signing up for an open-ended commitment, maybe a 5 or a 10 or a 15 or a 20-year commitment without legal authority to do so. The administration is resting solely on the 2001 authorizing language, which was to President Bush in the wake of 9/11 for pursuing perpetrators of 9/11. And yet in this instance, what they're saying is, well, no, that gives us authority for the next 10, 15, 20 years. That's not the case. Congress authorized for that action. I think it's a misreading of the law to move forward as they have. And finally, I'd make this point. The Bible says, be hot, be cold, but don't be lukewarm. And I think that this plan is predicated on lukewarm. I have some colleagues who say we need to commit ground troops. We need firmer involvement. I have others who say we don't need to do anything at all, and we're splitting it right down the middle. Let's bomb a bit, and let's arm, quote, moderate rebels, and we'll see how that works. We have a snapshot of how that works, because just this spring, 1,000 ISIS soldiers routed 2 divisions of Iraqis, about 30,000 folks in no time. Mind you, these are the same folks that American taxpayers spent $25 billion training and equipment. We equipped about 200,000 of them. It has not worked well. I think we need to pause. First, for constitutional reasons, second, for legal authority reasons, and third, for a flawed strategy that's based on lukewarm. We have that chance today, and I would beg of my colleagues to do so. With that, I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from South Carolina yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Schneider, for 5 minutes.